self-differentiation. I work with clients in my office and online, and I have over 100 free videos on YouTube for you to view. This video is entitled, "The Situation is Hopeless, but Not Serious." I'd love to take credit for this title, but I really can't. I had a favorite author that I used to read, and he wrote a book back in the 80s. I think it was 1983 when he actually wrote it. And it was entitled, "The Situation is Hopeless but Not Serious," and in parentheses, "The Pursuit of Unhappiness." And the author is Paul Waltzlawick, excuse me, it has an L in there, Waltzlawick. He was the professor of psychiatry at Stanford University Medical Center. And he wrote a number of books that were very helpful to me in my formation period of learning about working with people, relationships, and in a professional way helping people. So he really gave me the idea for this phrase that I've used ever since the 80s. And so I wanted to give him credit for that work rather than you just thinking it was something clever I came up with. You know, have you ever found yourself feeling caught in this situation? You don't see a situation changing. You don't see them changing or other people changing. You feel your needs aren't being met, or you're being abandoned or shortchanged or not cared about. You feel that without meeting those needs, you'll be very, very unhappy, and life will be catastrophic, or life would have to change drastically in a negative way for you to be happy. And then you think, if this doesn't change, I don't know what I will do. It will be awful. I know I've been in that situation a number of times. And for many years, that was a rather common situation. I have clients and couples all the time who come to me with this dilemma. Most of the time, it is not the situation which is unbearable. It is how they experience the situation as it is, how they catastrophize it, how they feel hopeless and pained about it. That often is the seriousness of it versus the situation itself. And let me give you an example. We'll use John as an example, though it could be John, Mary, Betty, Fred. John has lived under his father's criticism and narcissism since childhood. His father is rather narcissistic and has never really been empathetic or accepting. John continues to live out this struggle in his adult life. He's always feeling criticized by his wife and unaccepted, and feeling unaccepted by his friends, unaccepted by his boss, unaccepted by his wife, unaccepted by his kids. He keeps trying to get approval from his dad by becoming successful or advancing in his career or having a great or a perfect family or being a perfect Christian, let's say. Anything to get dad's approval. But guess what? He always falls short. He is upset that he never gets his father's approval. He has even complained to his mother on a number of occasions for years about this problem, and she understands, because actually she doesn't get it from his father either. She doesn't get acceptance from him. And it's at that point that I share with the client and share with John, you know, I just want you to know the situation is hopeless, but it's not serious. John immediately starts to relax. He sits back on the couch in my office. He looks a little confused, but also has a part of him that is saying, you know, this is exactly true. I know this is true. And he feels inside that I'm right, though he wonders how he will get unhooked from this Gordian knot with his father. maybe it is hopeless, and maybe it isn't serious. John thinks, I've never thought of it that way before. I've never thought about thinking about it that way. And immediately John begins to experience a little self-differentiation from his father at this particular moment. He experiences just a little crack in the enmeshment he has had with his father all of his life. I've even had some say, I don't like what you're saying, but I know you're right. But I don't like it. I'm not even sure I agree with it. But I know you're right. And I'll respond, well, you know, I agree with you. I didn't like it either. Because it's not a statement that fits in my paradigm. It does not fit in there. Oftentimes we experience the over-seriousness that I spoke about in a previous video, which keeps us enmeshed with our family of origin and with others. The bottom line is this: a situation that is hopeless does not mean that it has to matter, or be catastrophic, or even mean much of anything. So John asks, so how can I make it not matter? We always tend to move to the how question. Even though we've just experienced a little bit of self-differentiation and just experienced some detachment, we then go, well, then how do I do this? Like it's somehow a magic trick. Or so how do I make it not matter, Jerry? John would ask. And I respond, you will when you are ready. It's not a how question, it's a when question. When you are ready to let your dad go, then it will resolve itself within you. So let's work on getting you ready. Not teaching you how, let's work on getting you ready to do that. And we work on what are the downsides of letting go of dad, or letting go of dad's approval, and looking at what does he lose by giving up his need for his father's approval. All of that is preparation for the readiness to let go. And not many sessions later, John responds, you know, I really don't need my dad's approval anymore. He's just a person like I am. I don't need a parent any longer. I have a father, but I don't need a parent. He will always be my biological father, but it's not something he can fix in me. I must fix it. I keep thinking he's the one that will resolve this within me, John says, but it's actually I who have to resolve this, not dad. He will just keep being dad. He will just keep being him. But does it matter anymore when he is just the way he is as dad? John says, you know, it doesn't matter so much anymore. It just kind of rolls off. Wow, this is really different. This is really a different experience for me. And I say, I know. It's a very different experience. If you find the situation is hopeless and you are powerless to change them or change the situation, remember you are now powerful to change you, and you're not powerless to change you. You can change you. I was working on another video, and I was going to share some of those tips with you, and I think I might go ahead and share them with you. Yes, I want to go ahead and share some of these tips with you. It was kind of a video based on the idea, don't just do something stupid, stand there. Versus a takeoff from the saying, don't just stand there stupid, do something. Because many times we need to center ourselves before we do anything. But oftentimes we do something before we center ourselves. And many times we need to stop and do nothing. Because often we're playing into the pattern, the emotional field, and not helping the situation at all. We're staying stuck. Some tips for centering yourself in a hopeless situation, and one that we have made ourselves believe is very serious. Here are some things we can do. Lower our expectations of them and the situation, which is dealing with your illusions about the situation, such that if I don't have my dad's approval, I'll never be happy and never feel okay about myself. That's an illusion. It's a myth. For 20 years, your wife has always been critical of you. Yet we expect them not to be critical and expect them to be loving tomorrow. And if they're not, then they must be wounding me badly. No, that is our naivety in not accepting that this is the way my wife is. And it is an indicator of family of origin issues for me, that it bothers me so much. And naivety and subjectivity is always a way to indicate there's family of origin issues that need to be addressed. Secondly, I use this model, think of them as crazy and accept them as crazy. Well, they're just crazy. That's just who they are. We're all crazy. I don't mean that in a psychiatric sense. I mean, we're just all individuals with our own weaknesses and faults. Don't take what they say or do as personal. It's the reason they feel, think, and do the things they do is within them, not because of you. If your dad doesn't give you that approval, it's not because you're not approvable. It's because dad doesn't approve of himself and has learned that from his family of origin. It's not that you're causing him not to approve of him. It's the way it's done in your family. It's the paradigm that you learn from your family. And this is when we stop idealizing them and idealizing parents and idealizing family. And for example, our parents become Bob and Mary versus capital Dad, D Dad, capital M Mom internally. They become people rather than parents. Stop getting caught emotionally. Stop getting caught in reactivity. And stop giving your power away to them. There are ways to learn how to do that. There are ways to prepare to do that. And that's what I work on as a coach and a relationship expert. Stop trying to change or improve them. Stop seeking understanding. And again, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Stop requiring or demanding somebody understand you. The situation may be hopeless, but it's not serious. Just because someone doesn't understand you doesn't mean your life is horrible. Stop trying to get money out of an empty ATM. Many times we're trying to get that money out of a bank that doesn't have any. And then we wonder why we're so frustrated, and it must be me. It must be my fault. It must be because of me. No, maybe they just don't have any money in their ATM. Maybe they don't have that emotional ability in them to be intimate, to be accepting, to be caring, to be non-critical. They just don't have that within them. But we keep putting in our PIN number and hoping we'll get out acceptance and caring and loving. And then what can we do? Given who they are, what type of relationship do you want and can you have with them? For example, if your husband is grumpy when he gets up in the morning, and in fact has been grumpy every morning since you've been married, so I will need to give up the cuddling in the morning dream, because that's not something he's going to do. And I'll have to move that desire to another time of the day. Well, she's critical all the time. Well, I need to become less reactive and less wounded by her critical nature or her critical inner issues. You can learn to be less wounded by that. Now, you can always decide about a relationship. That's up to you. And by the way, every bit of advice I give in this video does not fit everyone in every situation. Sometimes I'll have comments, people will comment on my videos and say, well, but in my situation, I don't think it's very good advice. And you're right, it may not be. So I don't ask people to read or to listen to my videos to exactly tell them what they should do in their situation. I'm talking about a paradigm, a way to think about things, Certainly, if you want individualized help, then that's where you need to give me a call or send me an email. And of course, the ideal is for an entire marriage or both partners to get professional guidance, or even have the entire family get professional help, or even the relationship that you're in. Sometimes both are ready, sometimes one is ready, and sometimes one's ready to start. Sometimes one is not ready. Start with whomever is ready, but start. And I can begin to do marital coaching with folks with just one spouse. It will work. So how do you start? Give me a call or email me. Contact me for an appointment. My contact information is on the screen. If you want to learn more about how situations are hopeless but not serious, begin your journey of self-differentiation. If you want to write me, I'll send you some resources on that. Please join our YouTube channel. Remember, I've got another 100 videos on YouTube that might be of help to you. I want to thank you very much for watching today, and have a great day. Hey, hello everyone. I wanted to come to you live today on a Wednesday, and I wanted to share with you some information about accepting your own reality. One of the things that I know people who struggle, who grew up in dysfunctional homes, alcoholic homes, narcissistic homes, toxic or abusive homes, and how difficult it is for us to accept our own reality. And I wanted to talk about that. And I'm going to be talking about when we don't accept our own reality, or we accept somebody else's reality, then we're kind of doing the work of self-gaslighting. And I'm going to talk more about that today. First of all, I want to remind everyone, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, and also click the bell so you're notified when I go live, when new videos come out. That will be the best way for you to be notified of those things. This particular live is entitled Rebuild Self-Trust, How to Stop Questioning Yourself, How to Stop Questioning Yourself and Your Reality. And I hope this will be a help to you today. I'm going to talk about some points that may strengthen your sense of reality. I know the struggles that I have had in the past, and years ago, how difficult it was for me to accept my own reality. I always lived in the no man's land of no commitment to my own reality. I just always lived in that, not ever just accepting my reality life, and how difficult it made things even more so when I did that. I do want to mention also, please look at the links below. There's a free training below that costs you nothing. I think it's about 84 minutes. You can have that. That's linked below. And then also the online program that has now been released. And that's about 45 years of my life put into this online program. And you might find it helpful, and probably will save you therapy hours and therapy dollars. I wish I would have had that understanding and those understandings in that live program 45 years ago. Or I wish I would have had that out there available that I could have learned in that way. So let me talk to you about this reality thing and this whole self-gaslighting issue that many of us have. What do I mean by self-gaslighting? Or let me talk to you what gaslighting is. I think many of you probably have some awareness of that, but maybe not everyone. Gaslighting is the subjective experience of um, having someone repeatedly questioning your reality. That's gaslighting. In other words, someone's always saying, no, that's not the way it was. No, I didn't do that. No, you don't remember that right. No, that's not what was going on. No, I didn't mean that. We get a lot of gaslighting in our lives, a lot more than you may even realize. Well, not only do we have gaslighting from other people and other relationships, certainly narcissists will gaslight, insecure people will gaslight, sociopaths will certainly gaslight. In other words, they will question your reality and say, accept my reality. And that's the true reality because you're not seeing it, feeling it, or experiencing it correctly. Well, many of us have grown up with that practice, and so then we question our own reality all the time or often. And then we stay in this limbo state that I remember being in of just no man's land of no commitment. I mean, I just couldn't commit to, well, what do I really believe? What do I think is going on? And I remember an incident when I was pastoring a church, and just the particular people that were involved were gaslighting the congregation and gaslighting me. And I kept, and I had some insecurity. I was a pretty heavy codependent and going, are they right? Am I a bad pastor? Am I a bad person? Have I been treating them the way they think I've been treating them? And I remember coming to a moment late at night, went upstairs to my bedroom and just thought, wait a minute. Either they are right or I am right. And I have to make that decision. And I remember making the decision, hold up. They're not right. I know how I see it is correct. And that was a huge breakthrough for me to be able to go, wait a minute. This is not what's happening. This is not what was going on. How they are characterizing me and putting me in a box, it is not correct. And I needed to hold on to what I believed was going on. And they were also taking a lot of other parishioners with them in this gaslighting and just how I had to deal with that in the congregation. So if that's gaslighting, then what's self-gaslighting? And self-gaslighting is kind of equivalent to denial, but it's learned programming from our growing up in our family of origin. And where we might say, I am worthless. Do you know that self-gaslighting? I am ugly. I am stupid. My family will never accept the true me. I will always then have to feel empty, lonely, and unloved. Those are negative thoughts, and we do hear a lot about negative thoughts. But I wanted to put it into the context of a self-gaslighting process. And yeah, Angry Peach talks about, and I think I am trash. But that's other gaslighting and self-gaslighting. And I don't want to gaslight myself. I am not trash. I am not stupid. If my family doesn't accept me, it doesn't mean I will always feel lonely, empty, and unloved. That is not true. That's not reality. Or we can gaslight ourselves this way about dysfunctional families, even pretty toxic families. I know my family loves me, but they've never shown it. What what do you mean by that? If you know your family loves you and they never show it, how do you know they love you? Are you gaslighting yourself about the capacity your family has to love or not love? And many times many people I've worked with have had to look at, I don't think my family even really knew what love was, and they could not show that. It's just, I've always thought, since we have the same DNA and society always teaches your parents always love you no matter what, your family always loves you no matter what, family is everything no matter what, then society kind of gaslights us in that way. Not all parents are loving. Um, and not all parents are caring. Not all families can be loving or accepting of others. I'm not saying they should be shamed, blamed, ridiculed, etc. What I'm saying is we want to come to the reality of that. And I think, again, my family had a limited capacity to express that. I didn't say they were all evil. I'm just saying they had a real limited capacity. And so did I. Another gaslight, when my mother criticizes me all the time, she's just doing it for my benefit. Hey, hold on. How is hypercriticism and constant criticism done for your benefit? I'm not sure I understand that. Are you doing some self-gaslighting? That belief is untrue. That is not reality. If someone is always criticizing me, I'm not sure that's always a good way to interact. It's not a good way to interact. And particularly if I'm an adult, then it's a pretty toxic way to interact. If I'm an adult, I don't need everybody's judgment, criticism, opinions, advice, unless I'm asking for it or I'm open to it, or you are demonstrating that we have a mutual relationship in which you truly care about me. Then I will be more open to what you have to say. So, what do I mean by self-gaslighting? Self-gaslighting is when we repeatedly question our own subjective experience of reality, perceptions, or memory. And how many times have I heard from many, many people, I remember this happening when I was growing up, and then my parents said, no, that never happened. There are some instances in which we may have adult children who are narcissists, and they can make up things that never did happen. There are also other times that parents can't handle that criticism, nor do they want to own their own behavior, and will have to say, oh, well, that never happened. Well, I know that it did. I'm not asking for blood. I just know that's my reality. The process of maturing, the process of self-differentiation includes growing into your own perception of reality while being open to feedback. But we do need to commit to our reality, then be open, but feel secure in our own reality. Because I can't have somebody else's reality. I can only have mine. It may be imperfect. I may not have everything right, but there's only one way of seeing the world for me, and that's through my eyes. I mean, that's how I see the world. So it's okay for me to accept my reality while being open. And I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. Also, I was going to share some of these things, and then I might have some time available to answer a couple of questions when we get to that point. But you might want to save your questions till then, unless you just want to do it in the chat, which you're free to do, and talk with each other. I say hi to everybody who's been saying hi to me. Thank you so much. The with this reality, and coming to accept my own reality, which I think is a major step of maturity and growth and self-differentiation. I didn't say it was easy, but I believe it's a work that we can all do. And owning the fact that, I have only got one reality, and that's mine. I mean, I don't know how to see the world inside your body. I don't know how to do that. If we all go to a movie, you sit on one side of the theater, I sit on another. We're watching the same movie, but we're watching it from different perspectives. We may see a little bit of a different movie by being in a different location regarding that. And I don't know how to have your reality. I can only have mine. So what can we do to help with accepting our own reality? And I think one of the things, if we've had trouble with that, then we can borrow others' objectivity, people that we might trust. And that we can, and I remember talking to everyone in my videos and such, talking about what would Reggie think? What would Betty do? How would Betty see that? And Betty's kind of a neighbor who's pretty mature. How would she see this? And I think it's very good when you have a problem with someone and they're kind of gaslighting you, or you're gaslighting yourself over this issue. You can kind of go, if I take this person and put them into this position where I'm at, how would they see that and see that interaction? How would they view that? And many times we can go, oh, well, they'd see it the way I'm seeing it, really. They probably would see it my way. If somebody were mature or healthy, or, they'd go, what on earth is going on here? But yet the other person believes, oh, there's no problem. This is the right reality. I should be able to treat you any way I want, and you just need to accept it because that's what's right. And if I criticize you, hyper-criticize you, well, if someone's hypercritical of me and negative of me, if I take Betty from next door and put her in my position, how would she view what's happening to me right now? That gives me greater objectivity. And oftentimes we can own our own reality more so in going, if the whole world was the jury, they'd probably find for my side of the case. And they probably would. I think videos can be a way to gain more objectivity. Books, healthy friends, counselors, coaches, articles, conferences, workshops, anything that can take you outside your subjective box so that you can see your subjective box more realistically and own your own reality. And I think it helps us to step outside of our family of origin Wi-Fi and programming. And Catherine, I agree, journaling too is a good way to write about this and put your thoughts down on paper. See it in black and white and go, how would they feel? I know another example I've given to people when they go, okay, when I grew up, my parents treated me this way. I didn't like it, but it seemed normal. And I don't know what to feel about it now. Okay, then I'll tell them if they have children, and those children are about that age for when you were growing up, take little Susie, put her in that position, Or take Susie and you treat her like your parents treated you. What do you think Susie would feel? What do you think she'd think? How do you think she would experience that? And then their eyes light up and they go, "Oh my gosh, I would never do that to my child." It would be horrible for them, and it would be exactly. That's where you were. And that's what was going on then. Now you have a greater appreciation and objectivity to that little child who is growing up with your parents that seems so normal. But it wouldn't be normal for your child, Susie. They'd be traumatized all over the place. My hunch is you were too. It was just normal for them. So healing is important. When we have these false beliefs that are given to us by others, and when we repeat those false beliefs to ourselves, that's another way of thinking about self-gaslighting. When we repeat them to ourselves, that's when it's important to be an emotional and mental archaeologist. That's when we want to explore the origins of my negative and false beliefs. When did they begin? And can I go back there and be an adult support for that little me that was way back there, and have a re-parenting of that event? And again, we do tend to internalize and repeat from the Wi-Fi connection we have with our family of origin a lot of negative notions, unhealthy notions, toxic beliefs, and it would be healing for us to go back and explore those things and come to a more adult understanding of this reality. I also think that there are many videos, books, and articles, therapy and coaching that help you reveal your own self-gaslighting. My parents always loved me. And then coming to a realization, wait a minute, my parents really didn't know how to love, really. And that's coming out of that gaslighted state. And just even the gaslighting that family is everything. If you don't have family, you don't have anything. Well, that's good if the family is relatively healthy and relatively mature and not so dysfunctional and so immature. But if they are, it can be really a difficult gaslighting experience for ourselves. And I agree with you. Oh, I like the book. When I say no, I feel guilty. That is an excellent book. It is a superb book, and I think it was Emmanuel Smith, I think, who wrote that. That was a big healing book for me. I would recommend that to you. I also recommend some other books that might help you with your perspective and your reality. John Bradshaw books, I think, are really good in that regard. I found them very helpful. The Friel book, Friel, and I can't remember their first name. What is Normal by might be John Friel. The ACOA books, Adult Children of Alcoholic books, that talk about how our perspective has been bent. And then the narcissism, trauma. Adult Children of Adult Children of Narcissists. There's some good books for that perspective of the narcissistic perspective, which is not a good way to view yourself. There's a lot of training that goes on in dysfunctional families that we internalize and are programmed to continue to repeat even after our emotionally immature parents, great book, even after we get older and we now have more of, we can do with our lives what we want to do, and that I don't have to continue those beliefs. Let me get back to my last point here that I think is important, that in terms of reality, and I mentioned early on with the story that, hey, either they are right or I am right. We can't both be right. And a lot of times we will go back and forth trying to decide, am I right? Are they right? And we'll have a lot of self-doubt, a lot of guilt, maybe some shame. I think it's very important, and even in the online program that I have available now that you can click on and take a look at, I talk about choosing your reality, owning your own reality, and how important that is, and ways to look for non-reality, and you can choose and own your own reality, and then you make adjustments. So own your own reality, make adjustments with additional or new information that you might get. But it's important to just own your own reality. Think about a situation in which you were interacting with a friend, family member, spouse, whatever, and you had some self-doubt and what if you owned how you saw it? Now, does that mean I'm a perfectly objective person at all times? Of course I'm not. Nobody is. But I don't have to be to own my own reality, because whatever reality I see and perceive, I'm going to have to deal with, and so will you. Because I can't do anybody else's reality. I can only do mine. And so I want to own my own reality. So as I go back and think about that instance with the friend or the family member where they had seen it in their way, I saw it in my way, but I was questioning my way. They were very sure about their way. That, wait a minute, well, no, this is really how I saw it. I still see it that way. And even if they gaslight me and say, well, I never thought of hurting you when I said that. Yeah, but why are you telling our friend that you think I'm just kind of a weak person who, really doesn't know themselves, and that bothers you sometimes? Why would you tell that other person that? You can tell me that if you'd like, but why are you telling someone else? That doesn't feel good, and I don't think that's a healthy way to triangulate. I don't think it's a healthy way to relate. Oh, you're just oversensitive. Oh, you're just. No, this is my reality. I still believe that's true. I do not believe I'm oversensitive. I think your behavior was inappropriate. It's not going to cause the Earth to fly out of orbit in this galaxy. I understand it's not totally catastrophic, but that still doesn't make it right. And that I still hold to. I don't believe that was a right thing to do. And you can tell me all day what you thought your motives were, but from the content of what you told our friend, that was, I don't know how any other way to perceive it. I mean, it just wasn't a kind thing to say. And so, you know, that's, I'm going to stick to my reality and how I perceive it. So choosing self and choosing your reality and perspective are very closely related. So becoming a true self, and again, in the online program, it really is about, you becoming your new road to self. And a part of being yourself is to choose your reality. Now, does that mean I cannot have, and I think you're right, Amber. I like your comment, and that's just what I was going to say. We need to check our perceptions for magical thinking, superstition, biases, poor assumptions, and I agree with all that. I'm not. We are imperfect human beings, but that I want to still own the reality that I have. And out of that reality, I can check for ways in which I might have some distortion. But for somebody to say, oh, I can say that to a friend of mine about you, uh, and I didn't mean any harm. Well, now, wait a minute. I just don't know. I'm sure my friend didn't think more highly of me after you told them. And I'm not even sure why you're telling them when you haven't even told me. So I don't know that I can just go, oh, well, you were just having a nice conversation with her and you were not being passive aggressive. I mean, I just, wait a minute. This is still my reality. I don't have to hate you for it, but until I know otherwise, that's kind of how I perceive things. And I've told people that before too. Until I know otherwise, until I have other facts, this is where I'm landing and this is where I'm at. And if you've got new information, that's fine. Oh, well, I never did that, Jerry. Well, I'm not sure that's new facts because I have evidence that you did. You can say you didn't all day long. I mean, you're free to say that, but that's not going to change my perception at this point because I know that was done. If I find out it wasn't done or you didn't do that, I'll be happy to come back and apologize to you. Be happy to do that. Out of my confidence, I can come back and apologize to you. But until that happens, this is the subjective reality and perception that I have about what went on. And so I think choosing yourself and choosing your reality while being open is the most mature state to be in. Choosing no reality, only letting others always define your reality, that's a pseudo self. That's when we're operating as a pseudo self. And that out of that pseudo self, we then are just accepting everyone else's perceptions of reality. And I have to have my own. This is my own. Good, bad. I can say, I like this politician or I like that politician. But I can say, but I don't know everything about the politician. I don't know everything about what's going on. But this is kind of my perception at this point until I learn other things. And I'm open to doing that. But deal with me with my reality. That's dealing with the true me. Anybody have a couple of questions? Maybe you might ask a question, put question in capital letters, and then you could ask a question. Oops, I thought I just, hold on. Keep. What if the someone reality making your reality totally, totally, totally annoying? I'm not sure I know how that, you might want to restate that question. I'm not sure the, and let's see if I have here. Well, Jerry, any advice for going no contact with the family? Own your own reality. use that reality and the perspective that you have while remaining open to decide if you choose not if you choose to go no contact with them. I do have a whole video on how do you decide whether to go no contact or not on my YouTube channel. So that might be a good video to watch. Um, how I would think about that, because I have people asking me about that all the time, and of course I don't decide for people whether they should go no contact or not. The only time I might preempt a decision for a client or a viewer, or if there's physical abuse, harmful abuse going on, then I can't just go, oh well, it'll just work out. No, you have to have the basic safety going on for that. The basic safety is very important. And that you can't just, okay, well, he only hits me, every other week. Well, that's every other week too much. And that's very important to make that very clear. In other situations, then I talked about how much energy and effort do I have to put into maintaining the relationship with family members or a family. And many times, if I'm putting in 99% and they're putting in 1%, wow, that's a hard relationship to maintain over time. And I don't know whether, and then I would also question, is there a reason why 1% is enough for you? Yeah, maybe there is. I mean, you have a right to have whatever relationship you want with your family, but is that enough? Because you've got to do 99% of the work in this situation. What if someone's reality they're not facing, so they're making your reality hard to live? What do you do? I think that happens often. I think that happens often where someone else's reality can make it very difficult for me. What I usually attempt to do, depending on the situation, and I'm talking in generic general terms, so I don't know what the actual situation is with all the details, but I do try to think about, hey, I need to define and share what my reality is, and that I don't share the same reality you have. You're making it more difficult for me to function with you when now I need to rethink how I do this relationship. That's when boundaries come in, internal boundaries, external boundaries. I need to care less about your toxic reality. I need to care less about it. And I need to protect myself against your toxic reality or your distorted reality. That's not mine. And I have to say that I'm just going to be working out of my perspective. And I tell people, let's say someone comes to me. I don't tell anybody they have to do this, they have to do that. That you have to learn to be an adult in the self, and I want to support that. But let's say somebody comes to me and goes, Jerry, I am so depressed, I can't get out of bed and can't go to work. Okay, would you like to consider some treatment for that or a specific depression treatment? No, I want to work on my family of origin issues. Okay, we can do that. But now you have my perception and my perspective that I do think you are experiencing major depression. And so, and by the way, Angry Peach, I'm not a fan of medication. I am not a discounter of medication. I believe medication has helped many people. Medication is not for everyone. So It just depends on the situation and the person. I have worked in a psychiatric practice, and there was an awful lot of good care that was given to people with the help of medication. But I'm neither a fan nor not a fan. I just like to try to look at the science. The With the reality, again, I will be saying, so as we continue to talk and you have this depression, when the depression becomes a stumbling block for what we need to do with regard to your family of origin issues and work, if the depression enters in, you're going to hear me bringing that up again. I just want you to know that, because that's my perspective. If you want to go see somebody else who doesn't believe in depression, go and see them. But I can't stop believing what I'm not making you do anything. I'm just saying I can't just act like this is a non-issue. I'm not going to act like it's a non-issue. I won't push you to do anything. I won't make you do anything. But I just believe it's probably going to interfere with some of the work that we do. And that's my concern. And I'm sharing that concern with you openly. And that, and again, some people have had medication issues. I've actually been very, very helped by medication. So that's it. It's just, I know it's a hot button for a lot of people. And again, I don't push pills. I don't not push pills. I look at whatever the situation would make things better. Sometimes medication makes therapy or coaching much more effective. So accepting your own reality is something that's a very big part of growing up. Yes. Okay. Oh, Wavy has a question. I was taught that reality is extremely anxiety inducing, and that I can't stand alone or be strong. Now I'm scared of independence. How to work towards something I'm afraid of? No, well, many of us have been afraid of owning our own reality and owning our own perceptions and owning our own sense of self. And we have been taught to be afraid of that. It can be very anxiety producing. So number one, we need to work on our anxiety and reducing our anxiety and increasing our calmness when we're thinking about independence. And then what are the downsides of being independent? What are the downsides of not having that anxiety? What does that bring up for me? What do I fear will happen? Many times that is a distorted fear. It's not a real fear, or probably not really even going to happen. And of course, that's a common thing, is that fears many times are about things that aren't going to happen anyway and wouldn't happen. But our anxiety still can be high, and that we slowly work towards a more calm approach to, say, independence, and working on increasing our calmness. And again, the video "Calmness is Everything" might be of help in thinking about that. Because I had lots of fear. Do you know what was the biggest fear that I had on working towards being an adult? The biggest fear is I'd have to take responsibility for my own life. I'd have to take responsibility for my own choices. That was scarier than all get out. That was, though it could bring about a lot of freedom and a growth and a confidence, it also was, I don't know that I want to be responsible for my own choices, for my own actions, for my own feelings, for my own thoughts, and I don't know if I want to do that's That's pretty being on my own kind of talk. And it was very anxiety producing. And slowly working to move into that space, move into that space where I can accept these are my choices. This is what I want. I can own my own mistakes. I can own my own feelings. I can own my own thoughts, opinions, reality. If I own my own reality, gosh, I wonder what other people would do if I owned my own reality. Well, I'm going to have to start worrying less about what other people believe or think, because if they're going to be judgmental or guilt producing or guilting, they're probably already doing that. So often the things that we fear are already happening. So they're going to be that way anyway. I might as well own my own reality. And believe it or not, I don't even have to defend my own reality. I don't have to defend my reality. I hope that you will click the bell for notifications, join the YouTube channel. I hope you will do that. Take a look at the new online program that's listed in the link below. Your new road to self. And there's also a free training down there that you can have for free. I want to thank you all for joining me today. I'm going to continue to do some more lives. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I have the best followers in the world, the absolute best, and that's over 45 years of working with my followers and people who have some like-minded in terms of where they want to go. I want to thank you all. I hope you have a great day, and be wise. Hi, everyone. My name is Jerry Wise, and I've been a life and relationship coach for many years. I've also served as a therapist, a social worker, in a psychiatric practice, chemical dependency treatment, and been a pastor and many other things in my life. And now I'm helping people with life and relationship coaching using the Bowen Family Systems model of helping people learning to self-differentiate. And I hope that you will join my YouTube membership that we have now. We have memberships on my website. We have memberships on YouTube now. And we're going to be doing more on YouTube and even doing some live programs streaming on YouTube and Facebook. So we should be doing that soon. And we'll be notifying you when that's going to be happening. Again, it doesn't cost very much to be a member, a couple of dollars on YouTube. And it sure helps for the production of the videos and things such as that. And there are other benefits you get with being a member. I work with adult children of alcoholics. I work with adult children of narcissists, other adult children issues, codependence, family problems, business organizational problems, executive coaching, career coaching, and life coaching as well. I've done many things in these 40 years. This program is entitled 5 Things Codependents Miss in Their Recovery. I've been a recovering codependent for many years, since the early 80s, maybe even the late 70s. So that tells you kind of how long I've been around. And I'm a very strong supporter of the 12-step program, of CODA, Codependence Anonymous. I've done workshops on codependency. I've run therapy groups for codependence for many years. So I've literally worked with thousands of codependents over my career. And after doing this work, I'm aware of at least 5 things that are not taught or are overlooked in the recovery programs that people have been practicing and in their own personal recovery work. And certainly I was lacking these things as well. And today I wanted to discuss 5 of them. There are probably more, but at least I want to discuss a major 5 of them. The first is growing yourself up. Having been in recovery many decades ago, I understood how I should see my codependency as a problem and that it was something I should stop. I didn't want to be a codependent. I knew that was a problem. I became aware of it, came out of denial, and I was looking for tools and for techniques and methods to stop being codependent. I knew inner child work was important and that doing some inner work on me would be healing and would be recommended early on when I was in my beginnings of my recovery. In fact, I did a whole workshop on the 3 stages of recovery for ACOAs and codependents. And actually, I'm kind of talking about the 3rd stage of that without going into all of those things. But it's the 3rd stage that I think so often gets missed in a recovery program. There were a couple of things missing from what I read and researched. How do I change my immature paradigm? How do I move from the primary task of stopping my codependency to maturing and growing up inside, becoming more detached, becoming more of an adult, and in some ways becoming more normal and healthy? And insight, research, group support, and even therapy seem to miss some of these important dynamics. And how do I change how I see the world, my emotional field and my emotional functioning, my family and how my relationships work? How do I change my subjectivity, how I know and see things? Not just what I see, but how I process it and how I see it. And that's what I was very interested in. And I didn't find a lot of information about that. And one of the key things that I think is important to remember is the emotional field and the emotional awareness that you have and how you see the world will define your recovery process. Well, if that is limited, then it may limit your recovery program and limit how far you can go in your recovery. It certainly was limiting mine. And I was trying all different kinds of things. Most of us can imagine our recovery will fit our model of awareness and understanding of relationships and ourselves. If we come from a dysfunctional home, often our recovery is dysfunctional. That's not so amazing. If we're broken, we often will have a broken recovery. And most people think, well, I just recover and then I'm not broken and then all the world's open. And I didn't find that to be the case. That I would use what I got and have been given throughout the generations to me and use that as the box of my recovery. So I could make progress, but it still was kind of within that box. I wanted to change the box. And I was looking, how can you do that? There were a couple of things missing from what I read and researched. How do I change my immature paradigm? How do I move from a primary task of stopping my codependency to maturity and growing up? As most of us can imagine, our recovery will fit into our model of awareness and understanding of relationships and ourselves. For example, many of you have been to meetings. I would imagine there's a lot of people that's been to AA meetings, Al-Anon meetings, codependency, recovery meetings, ACOA meetings. There are even a few narcissistic abuse meetings, adult children of narcissists. And when you go to these meetings, it seems like there are many participants who are stuck in recycling. Often they don't appear to be growing up or in many ways not recovering. Now they believe they are. Well, within their box, they believe they are. And we look at it and go, well, why are they just so immature? And they've been going here 5 years and they don't seem like they've progressed hardly at all. I'm not judging other people. I know how difficult that can be. It's not about a judgment. It was about an awareness I had. And I'm going, if you've been in recovery for 20 years, and you haven't grown up yet, you've learned a lot about recovery, and that's good, but you haven't really grown up. You don't really see certain relationships in a certain way, and your paradigm's still kind of stuck on what your family of origin had. It's kind of like, have you really done all that you can do in your recovery? And some would say, well, they're just not following the program, the 12-step program enough. If you just follow it more or do it more. But they believe they are, that they are recovering, but they're using their distorted, immature, dysfunctional family model to judge their recovery. And that's what we did. And that's what I did. I used that model that I had within me to judge how I was doing, but I wasn't able to grow past that. Their recovery model is driven by the unresolved family of origin issues. Their recovery is often limited by these issues as well. And again, I'm not putting anybody down. I was there. I understand that. I'm still there. I'm still growing. I haven't become perfect by any means, or perfect in recovery, but I don't know if any of you have had that awareness, but that was kind of my awareness. I thought, what's the limitation here? A growing up model helps us to see self-awareness, self-definition, and self-regulation as the goal versus just pinging back and forth of our recycling. That's us stuck in this little box. Rather than gaining self-awareness, gaining self-differentiation, and gaining a systems thinking or self-regulation. I came out of denial early in my recovery. I was offered hope and healing from the past hurts and overfunctioning behavior that we as codependents will often do, and the fear and the shame and the guilt. All those things were present. And I even learned to do some self-care, which was absolutely critical to my recovery. But I think of that as stage 1 and moving into stage 2. Nobody told me about a stage 3. But it did not offer a way for me to learn to self-differentiate within the system. See things in a systems way. See my part in relationship systems. See their part in my relationship systems. And to grow up beyond an introduction to codependency books and 12-step programs, which again, I'm a strong fan of and encourage for people. We can only grow as mature as our box or paradigm will allow. And I didn't know there was that delimiting factor or limiting factor. I didn't know that I can't know what I don't know. And so I wanted to learn, how do I learn what I don't know? And I'm going to tell you how that began. I wanted to change or expand my box. There seemed to be little help out there until I found a family systems approach or a Bowen family systems approach to help me. Oh, this is what maturity is all about. This is what growing up's all about. This is the work of self-differentiation. Well, no one ever said that to me in the recovery community. None of the books even talked about that. If any, they just touched on it lightly. Secondly, a thing I believe that's often missed in codependency recovery is understanding systems feelings. I believe the conventional wisdom is this. All feelings are equal and should be valued all the same. Whatever feelings are just feelings. You don't make them happen. They just are. Just let them be, and they're all equal. And that's kind of what I thought. And that we should treat them all the same way. If I feel guilt, then I should try to overcome it or get rid of it. If I feel abandoned, I should love myself and not feel this way. If I feel shame, I should do shame recovery so that those feelings won't keep coming. If I feel hurt or rejected, I should just realize I'm not being rejected. And then, or if I am being rejected, to just ignore that. I should simply forgive myself and these emotions would not be there. Well, the difficulty was they just continued to be there, and I continued to recycle. I continued to have reactivity that I thought, this is not changing it. I am doing better, and I'm doing much better than when I was in denial of codependency, but it wasn't the progress I was hoping to make. In my early recovery for codependency, I did not see how relationship systems caused feelings or triggered these feelings in me. I assumed that they were just my deep, unhealed emotions. I thought of them outside the relationship system, not actually living inside the relationship system. I did not even see these things in terms of systems or how they operate emotionally. And so some advice was, well, you need self-understanding. You need to see yourself as common humanity, that we all feel the same. We all have feelings. We all have guilt. We all have abandonment. We all have, and some will talk about, well, you need to earn your